Hello and welcome to the JSIG Privacy Deep-Dive podcast. Today's guest is Kateryna Dubas, a brilliant data protection lawyer who will join us to discuss the insightful topic of artificial intelligence and privacy. Kateryna is working for Legal IT Group and Privacy.de and is a master's degree graduate specialized in private international law and technology law.
This is the JSIG Privacy Deep-Dive.
Hello everyone and welcome back to our podcast. I will be joined today by Kateryna, a dear friend and colleague in the industry of data protection, for an interesting conversation on artificial intelligence. Kateryna, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, thank you, Larisa. Hi, everyone. My name is Kateryna Dubas. I work as a data protection specialist and external data protection officer in two companies, Legal IT Group and Privacy. So it's an honor to meet you all. Thank you all.
Kateryna, I know you've been working in this field for a while, and you definitely have experience working with different clients in different sectors. So jumping straight into our topic, AI. From a business-oriented perspective, what are the main points any organization should consider when using AI for personal data processing, in your opinion, of course?
First and foremost, it's of course compliance costs because, it's something that you have to budget, that's something that you have to forecast and something you have to think about in the early stages of design, because once you build something, it takes a lot of money, resources, time, work power, everything just to change, for example, how the software works, how the process is built, and so on and so on. Vendor assessment, again, it always takes money to change everything. So compliance costs are one of the most important topics in this regard for business. Another one is like documentation, training, so everyone is aware how important it is to be in compliance, how important to be an ethical business, how important it is to react to concerns expressed by users, by the way. And of course, by compliance costs, I mean changes to the design of software, like in the meaning of qualification, because only a few people have enough skill and knowledge to work with AI. These people are pretty rare right now, so engaging with the same, for example, vendor to train your AI model will take, for example, time and a lot of resources. So compliance cost, one of the most important things. Two others include data protection impact assessment, because a lot of supervisory authorities say that AI must be built on risk-based role, meaning that you have to forecast risks, you have to mitigate them, and of course you have to document them. So DPA is one of the most important stages in the meaning of compliance as well. And third, but not the least important, is transparency, because you have to explain how your AI works. You have to publish a privacy policy, for example. You have to include some tips in your design, in your interface, for example. You have to do a lot of videos, how this works, for example. You have to leave the documentation in the open. So these 3 points are one of the most important, I believe. What do you think?
I would have said the data protection impact assessment would be the first one. I mean, in my opinion, if I'm thinking about AI, that's definitely the DPIA on top of my list. Every time I hear a client telling me, I want to implement this system, this mechanism, but I'm using AI. Okay, definitely. DPIA, exactly. Because we need to ask the questions, we need to get the answers, and then it's that specific DPO job to assess everything together. Because up to that point, we can ask the client, well, can you help me with these answers? I have some questions. It's like a simple questionnaire. Sometimes looks like a game to them. Oh, okay, I just check this and answer this. And it's going to be transferred to the US. Nothing that risky, isn't it? And then as the DPOs come into play and wait a second, that's the US. You can't simply transfer it just like that. You need some adequate safeguards, you need mitigations, etc. So that whole DPIA exercise, in my opinion, is extremely important. And of course, it's prior to implementing anything, prior to the privacy notice, prior to all that. And after I understand the mitigations that are needed, I can assess the costs too. And as you said, costs tend to be a headache right now because all organizations want to be compliant, but not pay too much, but not pay fines also. So we need to balance that. And AI has changed the whole game, let's say. Now, coming back to the transparency point that you raised, can you please list some items that are a must-have in a privacy notice with respect to AI?
Yeah, sure, because you will start with like the basics. What personal data are we going to use? Which purposes? How long we will retain them? And so on and so on. It's like, the table and the start of the privacy policy where you list everything in one place. Of course, third parties will have the access to this data. For example, if you are using somebody else's model, like you're not training it yourself, you're not hosting it yourself, but you're using, for example, OpenAI solution, you'll have to note that you are using some third party who may have access to the data that is in this model from you, basically.
Yeah.
So these are like the key points. And of course, another interesting one is for high risk AIs, which make automated decisions, which have like legal and other serious consequences. So we'll have to explain how the algorithm works. For example, what does it account for? Which factors does impact the outputs that are given by the AI? Maybe what data set it was built on, whether this data was legally obtained.
Yeah.
So everything the GDPR says you have to mention, you will have to include in your privacy policy at least, basically. But we also have another issues, not the data protection only, like copyright, for example, or competition or non-discrimination. How do you think discrimination does fall into, the frames of the GDPR, or do we need like another guideline or maybe another regulation, directive that will handle discrimination bias?
Yes, but still by prescribing and including the right not to be subject to automated decision-making processes within the conditions that the GDPR prescribe, then I think data subjects can be protected against this discriminatory bias. And I've noticed some interesting situations in my experience where clients would not use automated decision-making processes at all, and therefore thought, well, we don't need to include this right in the privacy notice because we don't use it. And what do you think about this? Because at first I was a bit surprised to see that, and I had to explain to them that, well, it's still something you need to mention. And the fact that you're not using such processes is a plus for you as a business. You should definitely mention it because it adds more value to what you do and how you see privacy.
You seem more transparent and trustworthy, yes, because sometimes you have to just clearly explain that we are not using this kind of processing, for example. We can do that. This algorithm can do it, but we are not using that because it's like our decision not to do so. So you are protected. And of course, there are some rights in the GDPR that are not mentioned at all in privacy policies. For example, like right to file a lodge a complaint with a supervisor or court even. Start a lawsuit, or for example, obtain a compensation for wrongdoings. These are always missed in the privacy policies, but sometimes they are necessary to be mentioned too. So, well, we have a lot to cover with privacy policies. We have this problem.
Absolutely, yeah. This is why sometimes it takes weeks to have an overarching privacy notice, and it gets sometimes challenged by clients. Wait a second, it's just a document. It should be 5 pages long and it should take you 3 working days. Why is it taking so long? Well, it's not on us, DPOs, it's on you because you decided to have thousands of processing activities because perhaps you're a big business, big company. So,
but see, all these companies that works like we do, they don't write so detailed privacy policies, and they're doing fine so long.
Yes, don't take other organizations' activity as a standard, because that's exactly
But
why you
everyone
hire.
uses some Amazon Web Services. It is safe because you see how many ISO certifications do they have. And every time you have to explain that it doesn't work this way.
Yes. Oh, we've been there. So we have the risk assessments, we have generic data protection rules, but the corporate environment is attempting to make use of AI to its maximum potential. So, do you believe some regulatory limits should be enforced as well, in addition to the instruments we currently have?
Yes and no. The first yes is because there are some concern because people are not really aware how AI works. I'm not sure even that I understand, even so I'm working with some of them. And as I mentioned, people who have enough skill and knowledge are pretty rare. Most of them, for example, are academics that are not working with commercial entities at all. So and others they can be even high qualified, but if you want to hire a talent in your private entity, you may not even find one, the ones that would suit you. So if we have a very rigid policy that will exclude business based on AI, instead of recruiting it for the sake of economy, you may have a competition problem and you will have even a technology lack and technology debt in means of society at large. But still, people are not really aware how their personal data even processed because nobody really reading the privacy policies. Even so, we spend so much time on drafting them. And it's a big deal because sometimes people become suddenly aware that we have, for example, this Google widget on our website. They are just discovering it. Or maybe their IP address can be shared to Google because we use the Google fonts on our website. And it's something that we ask them to review in our privacy policy before they, for example, do something on our website. But still, some people decide to click through, make a few quick decisions without even understanding how it will impact them on large scale. And after that, for example, they are thinking that if they refuse the cookies, they will not be shown advertisements in the website as well. And it doesn't work this way as well. So people lack this common knowledge about how technology works, how internet works, for example. And what do you think? Do we need to have a rigid policy, or maybe as a risk-based approach as the GDPR says? Or maybe we don't have to control it for 5 years at all, Wild West.
Definitely not. I'm more of a conservative person, so I prefer having it under control. And talking about AI, that's definitely not something you want to set free in the wild jungle and just let it be, because we already saw cases where AI was used maliciously, where people provided their personal data without knowing, as you said, without knowing where they are sending that data to, without knowing the purpose of collection, whether it will be transferred, what it will be used for. So that's very concerning. We need a set of rules, that is my opinion, that complements the GDPR. Now, of course, there are different systems that can be used, and we'll address these in some minutes. But I think that there is a high need and demand for a regulation on AI, and there were many initiatives in the past years worldwide. I even tried to draft a convention on AI and GDPR a while ago because I wanted to initiate this process. I felt it was needed. I felt that it's not going to be in good order if we use a generic regulation like the GDPR. And let's be honest, the GDPR is not tailored for AI. It's tailored for personal data protection as a whole. Yes, exactly. So do you think that AI can be used maliciously as well? And
of
why?
course, and we see a lot of examples. Basically, remember that Skater Lab, I believe, case when teenagers were sharing their histories of conversation with their friends, with their loved ones, with everyone, to understand whether they are compatible, like, on love level. And afterwards, the company reused it to build a chatbot. And chatbot was revealing like very personal things like addresses, sexual, for example, preferences. Even sometimes it was harassing the teens that were using the chatbot. So, of course, when you're sharing, for example, your conversation with some shady app, even if you believe in it, even if it's widely used, you cannot be sure that it will be used in a consistent way when you are sharing it. You presume that your conversation, any of this history that you're sharing with the AI, for example, will be only used to do this thing. But afterwards, the company decides, we have a lot of data. We can build something on it. And it's something that you don't really expect if you're a lay person, if you're not working in compliance, for example, or in data protection, or if you are not really aware of your privacy, you don't know what is it, because people have some problems with privacy and understanding what privacy actually is. So in this way, yes, there are a lot of risks. And it's not only in privacy, again, it's because somebody can reuse your copyright, for example, without your authorization even knowing of it. Somebody can endanger your business. Somebody can, use it to impersonate you, for example, or use it, for example, to fake something, fake for example, some videos of you that are not showing how you really behave. And it may create even a bigger problem, like understanding of what identity is, what is internet identity, isn't compatible with your real life identity, and so on and so on. So yes, AI brings some really important risks that must be addressed. And it's not only like essay cheating, in university. It's something even more sinister sometimes because it can be used to impersonate you. And it's, for example, to send something to the bank or to initiate a call with a bank and show a deep fake of you to get access to your bank account. Something I would like to avoid.
Yes, and it all comes back to reading the privacy notice when you create an account on a platform or an application. Because people won't see it, a reasonable data subject won't see it from the beginning that creating an account on that platform, providing your data on that platform may lead to reputational damage. Why? Because, as you said, a video can be faked to impersonate you, your voice, your face, etc., and can lead to reputational damage, to harm in different shapes and forms, to conflicts, even in the political realms or academic realms, etc. So the risks
and
are
celebrities, for example.
Yes, and there were several cases with celebrities. That's right. So in this case, AI definitely plays a significant role in the entertainment industry or content creation, perhaps health. What other fields do you see that are relevant for AI?
Education, of course, because a lot of lecturers are frustrated because they're given lectures that are like repeating itself all the time. In many countries, it's like a standard of education when one lecturer reads the same lectures years and years and years, and they get tired of it because they cannot bring anything new to this topic, because every year new freshmen have to learn some basic math, for example. So it's something that can be enhanced with the AI, but still, if you, for example, impersonate a teacher in your university, or if the university reuses even this image of this teacher, like his voice, his face, his clothing style, his movements of the body, and so on, is it okay for the teacher, for example, if they want to retire, or, for example, change their major, or maybe they don't want to associate with this topic anymore because, the planet is big, there's a lot of regimes in different countries, and some people want to change, for example, their political views at some point. So it may impact the future as well, because when you see teacher in one, for example, circumstances, and then you go to another, you will bring your stereotypes and expectations to that. But after that, of course, it will be health, as you said, entertaining, big deal, like everything entertainment related, even for fun. For example, many people use this AI Barbie bots that when you upload your photos and receive like an image of you being pictured as a Barbie doll, and you can reuse it in social media, you can share it with friends for fun, everything. But still, remember that people do not remember about other people's privacy and wishes when they do that, because photos are so cheap in, downloading on your phone and uploading to some bot, that you don't really think that somebody may not be comfortable with having their pictures or their images or everything else in somebody else's database. And sometimes people lose the perspective on such bots and such instruments. They do not consider them as the tools, for example, to gather a bigger database, meaning like a lot of cheap labor, but it's just for fun and some internet users.
Yes.
This, for example, the contents of the database may not be even legal because you don't control what is uploaded to the dataset. Basically, it's not really clean. So this gathering part of building a dataset that you will be later using for AI, it can be, very uncomfortable for some people who decide that they don't want, for example, a large online presence. So
Yes.
there's some things, yeah.
Yes, and that's the same situation as it was some years ago when filters were added on social media.
Mm-hmm.
So on different platforms, you could simply scan your face in the app and you would have, I don't know, puppy ears or cat face or different filters applied to your face. Or it was one point where you could see yourself aging. So how you would look in 30 years from now. And it's all fun and games, as you said. But after all, not many people understand that scanning your face while using such apps means providing them your personal data, and more precisely biometric data, which is sensitive data. And we just provide them like it's nothing. And after that, we are concerned that other third parties get our data collected unlawfully, most of the cases. And why is my photo on that website, or why is my face used for that process, that promotion activity, that whatever it is? So coming back yes, go on.
I remember, the case of Henrietta Lacks. For example, the scientists took her cancer cells and cultivated it to build like some privacy cancer treatment things, like medicine, for example, or strategies of curing it. And still, in some ways, this woman still lives. And nobody asked if she is okay with taking her cells, for example, for the first reuse. And it doesn't mean that everyone who is using the data, who is collecting the data via, for example, some funny app to see how you change over time, will be using it maliciously. They can do it exactly just for fun. They want to, for example, to demonstrate their skills. They want to attract some attention to their other business. They just want to have fun, for example, or create something like meme-worthy, something that everyone will be using and sharing on the internet and Twitter with some funny names and dogs and everything else. So it doesn't mean that business always sinister, but business sometimes can be, not even business, but like society in whole can be sometimes very sloppy with remembering that some people have privacy preferences and we have to respect them because it's kind of our boundaries. That's the case.
Yeah. And this whole filter industry in social media is affecting children also. So underage people that can't legally consent sometimes. Just taking the box for consent, I consent to the privacy notice, blah, blah, blah. And then your child's face is scanned by the app without you even knowing, you as a parent. So the risks are even higher. So we have sensitive data, which is the first level of risk. And then you have another level of risk because that person is a child.
Yes, and not only that, like child, having a child online is like a very complicated topic because it's not our generation. It's like this generation that is growing up now. They are challenging the most because their life is digitalized from even before their birth, because their moms were making the photos, they were uploading, for example, the DNA test or everything else over the internet, and everyone could see that. a lot of people are preparing, for example, Instagram pages for such people, for their children, or create, for example, some repositories of photos when everything is stored, even some very intimate family footage that you would hate your partner in future to see, for example, on family gatherings. Something really embarrassing, is in the internet. Yeah. So sometimes it shocks me because our life, for example, my generation, I'm 27, I only have a handful of videos when I was like really little, just a kid of 3 years, and it was like an analogous form. And I had to digitalize it at some point, and I was watching it and understood how much space for my private life I left behind, and nobody has even a slightest record of it, except, for example, some governmental records. That's all. But these children that are growing up now, you can use an AI to analyze all their life paths, all the choices that they make, everyone they spoke to over the internet, and people are spoken over the internet a lot about very interesting things. You can use it, you can obtain it even without that much trouble, because privacy policies are pretty sloppy, let's be honest. And nobody is really protecting for example, these conversation stories or old apps and their cybersecurity like an asset. It's like a burden on the company oftentimes. So you can obtain this information pretty easily if you are pretty skilled with the internet, for example, with the scenes, or just very versed in, or have some governmental accesses because of your position, for example. And you can obtain a lot of data on some particular person, and you can predict their future decisions, for example, and impose them on them. And I'm even expecting, some kind of real life sci-fi when people are analyzed by AI, and you target the advertisement on them in their social media profiles so sharply that they will feel this, it's a fate. I don't have any say in this. It's a fate that I saw this advertisement. I have to buy that product, and it's like a living nightmare.
Yes. And it's all about the digital footprints that we leave. And as you said, it's a generational difference that we have. And we can't change their mindset because this is the environment they are developing themselves in. But we can change how we protect them from the emerging risks. And one of these measures was the AI Act, that the European Commission thought it would be necessary to be issued. What is your opinion on the AI Act? Would you consider it a suitable instrument for regulating AI use? And is there something you consider it should or could be added in order to maximize its potential?
It's a good start. I must admit that I cannot think of of previous act or previous kind of regulations we could impose. We cannot treat, for example, AI as pets. We cannot treat them as people, like humans, even unborn children. We cannot treat them as anything else that we have encountered in our all previous legal development, the development of legal thought in general, if we are spoken like in pathos. So it's a good start. We have to start somewhere. And it seems that people invested a lot of time to analyze how it can backfire and to protect people from backfiring. So I admire all the effort that was put into it, because it's like a lot of effort. And I see how other countries are just using these works that are sharing with humankind for free. For example, you can see what we have built up to this point. But still I have, this shiver, because when we were starting to work with GDPR, we have something in place. We have something like a foundation we could build upon. We had some experience with enforcing some data protection laws, like national data protection laws, case law of European Court of Human Rights, and so on and so on. But we have nothing in this regard. And we cannot really apprehend all the changes that it will entail as well. So we will have to react to it. We will be working more reactively once it is open in the wild to enforce it. So it makes me as a pioneer of applying it. Let's be honest, we are pioneers.
Yes.
Well, a little scared because a lot of responsibility lies on us as compliance officers as well, because it's our interpretation that defines how it will be working. But still, as a lawyer, I'm so excited because, a lot of everything needs to be covered, a lot of concepts to be developed, a lot of tests to be devised and, for example, proven in courtrooms. So it's an amazing piece of work I would like to enjoy. I would like to engage in as well. So still, corporate risk analysts will have a lot of headache because, we have principles, we have guidelines, we have interpretations of the AI Act, but we don't have any metrics. We don't have anything like number-based to evaluate, to calculate, to build fancy reports to show to our stakeholders as well. And it's something that corporations will be, coping with for a long time because everything is just to be developed. And another area that, I'm working mostly with business, so I'm prone to thinking like a business myself. Another area of suggestion is, registries of AIs, because let's be honest, at some point we will have just too much of them. Because, that many nations had like this law that you have to register your database with privacy, like where you collect all the personal data. And for example, in Ukraine, once we established the body that will have to, register it, it was so overwhelmed with requests that it was closed down. They had to start it from anew because, at that point, it was not the invention of the internet. A lot of businesses had online presence. A lot of businesses had CRMs. They were collecting a lot of personal data to ship goods, to sell goods, to market goods, to take conversation with their clients, to collect feedback, and so on and so on. So every business had at least one or even several databases. So at this point, it sounds as a good start when you have only a handful of companies that are working their models. But with time, it will be so cheap. It will be so affordable. We will just have too much even of high risk AIs. So I'm not sure that it will not backfire on the supervisory authorities. The supervisory authorities are overwhelmed as they are already.
So you mentioned high risk AIs, and I know the AI Act follows a risk-based approach. We have AI that create an unacceptable risk, a high risk, and a low or minimal risk. Do you think that this strategy, this system of classifying AI by the level of risk is effective, or should we perhaps think about a different approach, something more efficient?
Well, it can be effective, but if we return to the point that we have too little specialists that have enough knowledge in this area and who can be, for example, relied on by supervisory authorities, not only businesses, but even the regulators themselves, to understand how the algorithm works, for example, is it producing biased results or not? What is the methodology to conduct, for example, this bias-prone algorithms to understand whether it is biased or not? It takes a lot of time, even in human time, just to prepare the methodology, for example, to plan the experiment, to document everything, to present it, to to give it to all the stakeholders, to discuss with them. It takes a lot of time. And it's not something that AI will be helpful in because, something that you have people you have to do people to people. It's something that you have to, discuss in person, not via AI assistant. So this is a bottleneck. We have a shortage not only of privacy professionals of some kind, but now we have shortage of privacy professionals and AI professionals, So I'm not sure that even supervisory authorities in business are attractive enough for such people, to work there, because it's easier to go to a compliance team of a big tech company, for example, than to go to the supervisory authority and be on the other side of the fence when everyone is hating you because you are this boring person who stays in the way of technology. Because technology is nice and regulators are dull.
Yes, but I've been part of an international congress of lawyers, and one of the topic was exactly on what you addressed, having a separate job role or position in the company for an AI specialist, but not AI specialist from the technical perspective, rather from the ethical perspective. So someone that's a specialist in ethical use of AI, someone that would become a decision maker in your company and that would work with the IT team and the DPO together. Do you think that's something we should look forward to?
Yes, because we have to differentiate, for example, when this particular AI is not low risk already, but it must be, for example, treated as high risk because it produces these results. For example, somebody learned how to use it to harm people or how to abuse it. So now we have to protect people from this particular use of this AI. And for example, we have to decide in our agenda, will we, for example, ban it for good? Or we will impose any more regulations. Maybe they will be sector-based. Maybe they will be omnibus law like GDPR or any other law. Maybe they will have to update our criminal codes as well. So we have this person, for example, on government level, enforcement side, and we have to employ such people on the business side because, of course, we want AI not only to make more profits from creating more filters, faces. We want to help people. We want to build, for example, personalized robots that could help people who are too ashamed to ask another human person to help them out. So they would rather rely on, for example, on the robot. We want to help our doctors in assessing a lot of materials to make the most correct diagnosis possible. We want to help our teachers to not to overwhelm with very boring tasks that are designed, for example, for accountability, but not for teaching what they want to do. So, of course, we have to have such persons that could argue that, okay, this technology is dangerous, but we are ready, for example, to take on some more responsibilities to bring the bigger good. So why not? But of course, ethics is crucial. And we see that nowadays ethics is crucial not only for humans, but organizations as well. You have to clearly state what your values are, what side are you on, what is important for you. So, well, I believe ethics is something that we will work a lot this century.
Yes. And ethics is starting, well, not necessarily starting, but it's gaining more and more attention as well. And due to AI, I notice social shift, let's say, towards understanding the ethical standard of using different technologies, including AI. But ethics, after all, at the end of the day, is not something tangible. It's not something we can define in 5 words or even 5 pages. It is something at a moral level, rather. And it is sometimes unclear. So having a professional that understands exactly the scope, the limits of what could be ethical and what could be not, I would say it is a mandatory requirement for future reference. But again, it is something unclear. And I noticed several aspects in the AI Act that are unclear, starting with the definition of AI, which we would have expected to be very precise, very clear, very well determined. But AI, as the first glance, is linked to software. So, in my opinion, this may leave out some potential development of AI. So, are we sure that in the future, AI will be only software? Because it develops at a very fast pace, it could change, and we don't want a regulation that's very rigid. We want a regulation that will be applicable in 5 years' time as well. So, what is your opinion on this?
Yeah, I agree, because, we have a lot of going on in biology, for example. At some point, we may even, for example, create new minds from bacteria, like smart bacteria. The things already exist, people are modifying the genomes and the organisms are working and living, and they can be, for example, an alternative to our intelligence as well. If we call humankind intelligent, of course, maybe from the viewpoint of ravens, we are not really that intelligent. Nobody knows. Ravens are silent about this matter. So still, yes. And it's something that bothers me as well, because what is the main point of the AI Act? We're only talking about this particular time frame when we are only having an AI in tech mostly, but we are not so prepared to create new organism intelligence in biology, for example. What about androids? At some point, they can be bionic. They can have both technical and biological components.
Yes.
So it's not really software. It's not really hardware. It's not really something, organic. It's something in the middle. Something that, Stanislav Lem would admire to challenge. And yes, so for me, AI acts like this particular draft is a first touch, the first thing to regulate something that wasn't even existing earlier. So
Absolutely.
I only hope that over time, when technologies and new intelligences come into existence, we will maybe update it. Maybe we'll review our understanding of AI altogether. We will define something else as AI.
Yes, but it's still funny in a way that they have several unclear items and clear provisions in the regulation, yet they state that one of the purposes of the regulation is to ensure legal certainty. So this kind of clashes one into another, and one may ask, well, is it really legal certainty if I can't understand exactly what you're telling me? I can't understand this concept.
Where is the edge between legal certainty and terminology used for AI in this act, for example? And it's so funny because, like they mentioned in recitals for several times, it's important to have a clear understanding what AI is, but still, it's a software that does thing. And it reminds me of GDPR back because we have privacy, personal data. It's a data that identifies people, and we don't have a list of some kind. So sometimes when people start, exploring the GDPR and start to getting interested in it, they're like, where is the list? Please show me the list. What is considered the personal data? And you're like, oh, there is a nuance, legal certainty.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We've encountered that before when we try to pull together a list of personal data, what can be considered personally identifiable information. But then you realize that it's rather a creativity exercise than a legal one, because you need to think beforehand at any personal data they could process and think, okay, yeah, it could be this one, and create a table of 2 pages, and only to realize that you missed one line and you need to have 2 other calls about that specific field.
It reminds me of, this friendly exercise when you have, for example, a picture and a name from a dating profile that your friend shared with you, like, hey, see what a cutie I have here. And you are trying to find it on all the social media, to understand what the person is talking to my friend. Is it safe? Is it person nice? And so on and so on. So somewhere on this path, you understand that you're gathering even more and more information. It's not always considered like personal. For example, some company name or some nickname, or maybe names of some organizations, or maybe, for example, anything else. And something on this path, you understand that maybe it's not really like personal data if we see it, for example, like just a list of 8 items. But if we get them all together, then I'm making something illegal here. I maybe stop. It's time to stop abusing this personal data.
Yeah.
So
and
when you use AI, for example, it's not clear where its stop is. For example, if you want to find this person online, and you have a special app for that, and you will have one, of course, because there is a lot of potential in this kind of business, that you can only, for example, upload a screenshot from dating profile, and this will gather you all the information that's on the internet, even their childhood videos stored by their mother.
Yes, 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 yes.
So
So
it's
it's a whole
something,
recognition after all.
yeah, yeah. Maybe
And
even
yeah.
for, law enforcement purposes.
Yes, well, at least there we have a lawful purpose when it's about law enforcement. But I also noticed in the AI Act that one of the systems they are addressing specifically, and that sparked my interest, was emotion recognition systems. And it's something very interesting, very innovative that I'm sure many people would be interested in. So these systems are made and used for the purpose of identifying and inferring emotions and perhaps intentions of natural persons. And from my research, I noticed that they started to be used in the gaming industry. It's very fascinating to follow the whole process. And for example, they try to detect your emotions, your mood while playing a game. And if they notice your retina is moving or your eye is tense, then they adapt the game according to how you're feeling. And that works in the education sector too. For example, there is software that changes the difficulty of tasks from children's homework, let's say, or tests or different tasks that they have according to how they look at the screen. Again, retina, are they frowned upon when they read the question? Are they happy? Are they relaxed? And it may seem something very beneficial, very nice, very advantageous, something that we should be looking forward to. But at the same time, we're coming back to the risks attached to this. Another example is in the recruitment field. So we saw software being used during the interviews to assess the credibility of candidates. Did those candidates sign a consent form before that? Were they aware that such a software will be used, or what was the legal ground there? So it's very, very interesting. Did you encounter any such system, or any of your clients be using such systems?
No, a friend of mine was developing one, but they didn't finish the job. But still, for example, when I have some free time, I'm advising like random people who are talking to me, like students mostly, because in Ukraine they are very conscious about being a part of European community, like at a bigger scale than before. And of course, they're very interested in European legislation, basically, and they are thinking about their future, especially if they are writing, for example, some master thesis or anything else. That for example, their scientific title won't be revoked in a few years because we have such precedents in Ukraine by now. So it's important for them to understand that they're doing everything fine. And one of the PhD students in Ukraine, asked me to help him. And he works on emotion recognition system that works on comments on social media. And he was so nervous that it may be, like surveillance kind of use. But the thing is that this system is to be used by government, basically, to understand what is the mood of society at all, what are the topics that are rising most of the interest, most of the discussion, how heated the discussion is, what is important for them. On the one hand, it's like very dangerous because, you can understand what people think and you can control them and try to control them, of course. But on the other hand, it helps to tailor the policy, for example, to understand what is important, what does these people want, basically, what is important for them, to understand what is the values of the mentality, for example, of these people. Maybe there is some correction action that is needed. Maybe there is some, for example, stereotypes that are living in the society still, and we need, for example, an awareness campaign to explain that these people are not to be stigmatized, are not to be stereotyped, and so on. So, it depends on how it is used again, and who uses it, and for what purposes, and what are safeguards, for example. Maybe we need some set of international convention, like you say, that will prohibit countries from using some specific AI solutions, for example, to surveillance, for surveillance as a whole, meaning filtering all the people on the planet to understand whether they feel likely to be terrorists, for example. Maybe it's overkill, but maybe we will use them for more tailored purposes, and we'll be okay, or maybe for educational purpose, or for scientific or statistics or sociology. You have a lot of fields where AI can be a useful thing, but still there are always this worry on the background of your mind that it will be used to control you. So it's something that maybe states might be transparent about as well, to say that, okay, we are not going to, to spy on your people. We are only using this for this, and this. And we will persecute, and we will investigate all the misuse of these tools. So it's something that will bring trust in people around you, that we are on the same boat. We are everything is caring for society at large, about the democracy, about our values of freedom of choice, of freedom of rights, and so on and so on. So, yes, it's something that we maybe need to think of internationally as well.
Yes, and since we concluded that there's not a high level of awareness among these generations, practical cases play a significant role here, because this is where they have a wake-up call. They see, wait a second, there was a data breach. My data was transferred to a jurisdiction that I didn't even know about. And for a purpose, again, I didn't even know about. So let's address other practical cases. I really want to focus on Clearview AI and OpenAI. In both cases, we saw data breaches being identified. We saw investigations. We saw temporary or permanent prohibitions in different jurisdictions. So how do you feel about these practical cases? Are you happy, just like me, to see that we're finally enforcing some rules, some barriers for the unlawful use of personal data by AI? Are you, what is your position on that?
It's interesting to see because, it's interesting to see from the GDPR point, because in the GDPR, if you will go and read it carefully, you will see that supervisory authority is not about fining only, not about enforcing, not about investigation. Exactly. It's about consulting as well. It's about cooperation. It's about you can come to us and ask us, for example, for our expertise to share, and it's okay for you to do so. It's free of charge. We will be happy to help you. But still, some people decide that, maybe, authorities are too controlling, so we will not go to engage with them. We will not ask them anything. We will do our way, and we will see how it goes. And it's really the case, because in this case, I admired OpenAI because they engaged with the supervisory authority. They saw the signal. They came to the discussion because they understood that, at some point, we have to use AI. It's not like we will just ignore this technology for ages. We have to use it, and we have to use it in a responsible way. And OpenAI decided that we will cooperate with you to help you build this framework, how it can be working, how everyone will be protected at the same time and using the benefits of this technology. But on the other side, Clearview decided that, no, it's not like our case. We are operating only in the United States. We are not a European business at all. We are not engaged and not selling anything on the European market. So, okay, we are not in our area of enforcement. It is an interesting viewpoint because, GDPR still applies to them because they scrape the biometrical data of European citizens. And it's clearly Article 3 case. It's the most clearer one in this regard. And, we have, on one point, we have this Clearview case that was earlier that could, sow doubt in whether the GDPR is even enforceable. But on the other side, we have the OpenAI case, which said that you can come to the regulator, you can say how you are working, you can help them with understanding how you can be regulated, and you can work on this healthy dialogue between you and the state and the people to say that, you see, this technology is nice, you can use it for your advantage as well. And we are nervous that you have some concerns about it, so we are going to develop some controls for you, so you will feel control over your data. So it's a healthy way to engage, and I would like to see more cases of such a cooperation. because it's like not about fines only. It's about dialogue. It's about people expressing what they want to. So
Exactly.
again, we're back to democracy.
Exactly that. And it's frustrating, for me at least, to see that there are professionals in the field with solid experience and still don't use this amazing right. You have the right and the option to contact a supervisory authority, as you said, to have an open dialogue. How many times did you call, I don't know, the ICO, the Italian supervisory authority, the Spanish one? They are all very famous, very well known, very posing figures. But after all, they are people, and they want to discuss with you. They want to help you. Everyone's purpose here is to have the personal data of data subjects secure, protected, etc. It's a common goal. We are not working against authorities and authorities against us. It's, as you said, it's a joint exercise. And I'm always very happy to get on a call with the supervisory authority. It's always a warm experience and a pleasant experience after all, because I get the guidance that I need. I use it. My client is happy. I am happy. No prohibition, no fine, no sanction. So yeah,
I see.
this is
Absolutely
recognized.
nice. Yes, I had contact with them too, and it was like a lot of pleasant experience. You know, the wording, the tone of conversation, the help that they provide, even the attitude towards you. You are not feeling that you are guilty, you know. You just have to explain yourself and reach a compromise. And it's like a healthy way to discuss all such things in society, for example, because still we have to figure out where is a balance between our right to privacy and data protection and social good. It like protection for individual and social good at large, and we are figuring out this balancing, and this balance will be changing over time, of course, because we have different challenges. And I like that I can go and I feel protected because I will be heard out, I will be notified, and it's something that I would not describe, that I would experience more if I could, because it gives you legal certainty. You understand exactly how your enforcement body sees you, for example, how they see the breach defined, whether it is a breach or not. And you can understand certainly that if there is a time when your, for example, decision or advice is contested, you have something to pinpoint on. You see, I obtained all the guidance and I was working at it. I'm a responsible user of your private personal data. So, I hope for AI it will be the same.
And this emphasizes once again the accountability principle that many people disregard. Oh, we're doing this, we're doing that. We have the assessments, we have the notices. And what about accountability? Because all those documents don't necessarily mean you fulfill the accountability principle. You need to have a bit more than that. You need to show your intent to actually follow the rules, to do the due diligence in terms of privacy, not only in terms of business, simple business. So, Kateryna, I would like to exactly. I would like to ask you now some practical input from you. What would be something extremely valuable, something you noticed in your recent experience working with clients on AI that would benefit our audience to know?
You can do the same trick as with privacy. Use privacy as your competition edge, because when you are very transparent about that, when you're very concise on what you have, how are you, how are you processing the data, what are you intending to do with that, how this software works, what are the limits of it working, for example. If you are well aware of its capabilities and you are very transparent about that, people grow to trust you. They know that you're not a wild person. You will not misuse it. For example, your ultimate goal is to make a secure app for them to use, for example, to do their banking, to do their education, to do their correspondence, and so on and so on. And if you're clear about that, if you can explain that and so on, if you write a concise privacy policies, not shady ones, if you are really engaging with them, if you answer their requests and so on and so on, it shows that you care. And it's like something that makes you stay a little bit longer with this company as well. Another one is well, prepare, because, GDPR was such a shock back in 2018. Everyone was never even thinking of the GDPR will come into force. Even so, they were notified about it like in 2 years at least. So they had plenty of time to prepare. And of course, you had all this rain of privacy policy updates in May. So you have to, read and spend all your weekends reading. There's a new privacy policy, GDPR compliant now. So it's something that you can use the AI text as it is now to prepare, to make risk assessment, for example, to run some exercises, to gather evidence, to clear your database, maybe to acquire a new database that will be legal to use. So you can just read it, understand what is expected from you. So when the time comes, when it is coming into force, you are prepared. And you will notify people that interest in their life with your tools, your AI-based tools, that you know what is going on. You're responsible about it. So it's something that buys trust as well. And what is the most interesting thing about the AI Act? Only the last thing that I would like to mention. Your team must be prepared as well. It's not only your compliance team, for example. It's not only your DPO that will be, of course, had a pile of emails. Like, why are you processing this like this? Why is it working like that? It's something that you have to prepare for when you have your team prepared, because even if this question is very naive, even if it's like very rude, for example, or maybe it's derogatory, maybe it's provocative, but still you have to be responsible about it. You have to be the grown up in the room. Like, we did this all. It's very powerful. It can be misused, and we understand that. So we have this, and this to protect you. And please, you are free to enjoy these controls. Please use them. Be okay with that. It's not like you are disloyal to us. We design it for you, basically. So it's like your team that makes your face, your image, and they must be prepared. So this is about culture as well. When you're responsible, when you treat, for example, your employees' data with this kind of care, when you are not using or abusing the AI to make decisions in your own company, and nobody is, for example, doesn't feel discriminated or maybe, misled, or they do something wrong, they are always under some monitoring or surveillance. If nobody is, intimidated by this technology in your own company, it shows and it buys trust. So it's something that you have to consider. It's not about documentation only. It's not like something that only legal professionals do. It's a bigger work of DPO-like professional who will come to a company and say, we are living in this way now. So you have these rights. Not only our users, but you are as well. And they will feel secure, and they will translate the security to our users. Basically, that's it. What would you add?
So don't give up on privacy for business or for profit. We cannot predict what will happen with AI, right? But we can try our best to be prepared for it. And we need to make sure that economies continue to grow, but that we're still on top of new legal requirements and, of course, emerging technologies. So thank you very much, Kateryna, for your insightful input today and for accepting our invitation. And
thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, you're welcome. For more episodes, you can find us on YouTube and Spotify. And if you want to find out more about Kateryna and her work, please check the description box. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. See you all.